let you know. Isn't he the mayor in Nagani?
Yeah.
And it looks like, Tim, looks like we are on YouTube already. So we should be good to go. Yes?
Yes, Your Honor, we are streaming, and if I could suggest that you move the microphone in front of you.
Good call. It probably helps to turn it on too.
Oh.
There we
Perfect,
go.
thank you. Thanks, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Okay, so it is 6:03 then, and we will call the meeting to order. And Kathy, can you make sure that everyone is here?
Mayor Bean,
Here.
Councilmember Chapman,
Here.
Councilmember Furby,
Here.
Councilmember Scanlon,
Here.
Councilmember Skug.
Here.
Excellent, all present and accounted for. Then we'll move on to agenda comment. If there is anyone from the public who is attending on Zoom that would like to speak to the agenda, please go ahead and use the raise your hand function. And Jim, if you could let us know if there's anyone who would like to do that.
Currently, we do not have any attendees from the public, Your Honor.
Okay, then we'll just do one more call for agenda comment. If you're logging on, raise your hand. Going once, going twice. Then we
No public attendees.
All right, thank you. Then we will close agenda comment and we will move on to the agenda items. The first of which is the interlocal agreement between the City of Ishpeming and the City of Nagani for floating docks on Teal Lake for the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund and Recreation Passport grants.
So, Your Honor, there's generally one interlocal agreement with two names. And that is so that we can apply for both grants, but the interlocal agreement, the partnership between the two cities is exactly the same, other than the title for the different grants. These have been processed by our attorneys and the City of Nagani's attorneys, and it's also gone through MMRA, who services both City of Nagani and Ishpeming. So it has blessing from two attorneys and one insurance company.
Sounds good.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we accept and execute both copies of the local agreement between Ishpeming and Nagani for the kayak launching docks.
Support. All right, so we have motion and support to approve the agreement. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
So before we leave this evening, if you could sign those, we're going to try to get the application out this Friday.
Yes, I will make sure that I do that.
Appreciate that.
All right, next on the item, number 2, approval of the Hydrocorp Cross Connection Control Plan.
So Hydrocorp does our cross-connection program, and we've already renewed their contract with them. This is a document that supports requirements with Eagle to ensure that we have a cross-connection control program. And so this is their program that meets the Eagle requirements and supports our total water package of what we do with us to reporting through Eagle. And it has been reviewed by our attorney.
The requirement,
The plan has not, the contract has, the plan's been through myself, and we can send it to the attorney, but it does meet the requirements for Eagle, so.
that
generally
was one
speaking,
of the things they alleged that we were missing.
It is one of the things that was missing from the past report.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we accept the cross-connection control plan for the City of Ishpeming as required by Eagle.
Support.
All right, motion and a support. All those in favor of approving the control plan, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Number 3 is the special event application for the Chamber of Commerce for April 2021.
I don't believe that anyone's on from the chamber, but I am a board member for the chamber, so I'll take city manager hat off, put Chamber of Commerce hat on for a moment. But we had reviewed as a council, you had reviewed a packet for a winter event, and then subsequently, the 2 days prior to that winter event occurring, we had a major melting, and the weather was not conducive, and the snow was gone. So they have tried to regroup and reset a priority for a spring event. They called it, I think, the Muddy Trail Scavenger Hunt. So it's still very much in keeping with the plan that was already approved, with some minor changes from snowshoeing to hiking in muddy boots versus snowshoe in winter boots. But the concept's still the same: spend time outdoors as a family and do things within the park open area. They would still control the things the way they had already projected to do so, and they have their sign up online and they have their register at the event kind of setups. So there's not a lot of difference, just the time of year and the snow being gone. We called it our 5th season of the UP, which is mud season.
Okay. What are the dates specifically?
April 10th, from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. So they wanted to miss spring break and follow Easter. They didn't want to try to interfere with either spring break or Easter, so.
Okay.
Putting my city manager hat back on, I would say that they have met the same condition requirements that we had already looked at from.
Yeah, none of those conditions were weather dependent or reliant, so all those controls can be done the same.
Yeah, and they were doing porta-johns and social distancing, signing in so you knew who your family groups were, and doing their COVID checks with the thermometer. All those things are still staying the same, so.
Yep, okay.
Is there any activity by the DPW here that's going to be required?
I don't believe they've asked for anything from the DPW at this point. I think they're gonna go out and hang their own, or do whatever they're gonna do in the woods for the scavenger portion on their own, other than coordinating with them to say, hey, the porta-john will be delivered on or about this date, and making sure it gets put in the right spot. That's about all.
Your Honor, seeing that they have met all the COVID requirements and mitigation, I make a motion that we approve the event for April for the Greater Ishpeming Nagani Chamber.
Can I just add, they were also requesting a waiver of the $450 large event fee.
Oh, yeah, let reflect that, please.
And that's the same because we had approved
Right.
that for the other
Right,
as well,
right.
so.
Correct.
Support.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of approving the, what are we calling it?
Muddy Trail Scavenger Hunt.
Muddy Trail Scavenger Hunt. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye? Any opposed? Okay, then that passes. All right, next on the agenda, number 4, proposed welcome sign for the disc golf course at Elk Hall.
So there's sort of this two-prong approach to things going on related to disc golf, but this prong is that there's a group of folks that like to play disc golf that would like to see the 9 holes that we have refurbished. They have complete donations covering all costs to repair and or replace the baskets that are the holes for the golf. And the UP Golf Association, who is proposing through the Parks and Rec Board and then subsequently down to the council or up to the council, an 18-hole future golf course, they are asking if they can donate a sign. So you have a picture of what that looks like, but it's basically the starting point of the whole of the golf course, and it is going to be able to be relocated should the 18-hole golf course take effect later. They would just pull it from the ground, relocate it to another location, but it allows them to hang information, rules, some site plans, like if you walk to a golf course, they would have all the holes laid out, you know which way things are going, where the tees are, tee boxes. So it's an informational sign they're asking to be able to install now to support the 9-hole disc golf course.
Where is that gonna go? Ed?
It'll be somewhere close to hole 1. The siting would just have to be kind of figured out as to where it makes the most sense in not creating any kind of parking hazard or any kind of thing it'd be pretty close to hole 1.
Okay.
And the Parks and Rec recommendation is to approve it?
Yes, sir. So the Parks and Rec Board has already seen a packet for an 18-hole golf course in the past. The 9-hole golf course already exists. All we're trying to do is add a sign at the welcome to it. And Tim D'Angelo says this is great. He was in on the discussion of upgrading the 9-hole. He's really excited about it because right now holes are leaning sideways and you can't really use them. And he doesn't have any work to do with it. He's already maintaining the mowing and raking and things like that. But he doesn't have any work to do to upgrade 9 holes, and he wouldn't have anything to do with this. They're gonna self-install and deliver. And then he was pretty excited about the 18 coming, but that's gonna go back through the Parks and Rec Board and all the processes associated with that. So this is just to clean up hole 9 and give it an actual welcome point to the 9-hole golf course that exists, free of charge.
I'll make a motion we move forward with this recommendation from Parks and Rec Committee and allow that sign to be placed at no charge.
Kathy, did you have something you wanted to say about that?
Well, they haven't seen the sign yet though, right? Parks and Rec?
The Parks and Rec Board, no, Tim D'Angelo has.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tim D'Angelo has seen it. The Parks and Rec Board has seen the 18-hole, which includes this, but we haven't done anything with the 18-hole. This is just to put this in for the 9 holes.
Right, I'm just talking about the sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is gone by Tim, but
Just
not the
so-
Parks and Rec Committee,
Yeah.
not the board. This is part of the old 18-hole golf course that did go through the committee.
No, I understand
It's
that,
not a
but
revisit.
Then my motion would be as long as it's approved by the Parks and Rec Board.
And it's on their agenda for April.
Okay, so if you would change that to pending approval.
Well, I'll support that.
I think it was.
Oh,
do I need to, yeah, support
Start
for
the
that?
change.
Oh,
okay. I thought we were still waiting.
sorry.
Okay, all those in favor of the welcome sign pending Parks and Rec, please say aye.
All right,
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, passes. All right, item number 5 is the 2020 to 2021 Michigan Municipal Executives Fellowship Program.
So you've probably received multiple emails about this from me. Last year, we attempted to be a sponsor city, and we did not win. We were a high competitor in the UP, but St. Ignace won the one position that was in the UP. This year, I've taken a different approach, which is to go to our local school, NMU, and get some buy-in. And they have bought in and said that they are willing to, well, they've already signed the MOU with MME to be a school that will promote this program to their Masters of Public Administration program, their MPA program. And then the hope and desire is that the city of Ishpeming would want to support such a program, that we would be a host city. There's some details that have to be worked out, so I wouldn't want to necessarily ask you for a full approval tonight, but just to think about it and come back with some questions and things you want to understand. But we do have to get an application in by the beginning of May. But I'm working on getting like a sample application, show you what it looks like. But the commitment would be $3,000 from the city of Ishpeming paired with, $6,000 from the city of Ishpeming paired with $3,000 from NMU and $3,000 from MME to pay a graduate student stipend of $12,000 for a year. We have to define the educational requirements and how they would kind of rotate through the city program and understand municipal government. So some of those things got to kind of work themselves out here yet. And I got to get with NMU and figure out what their desired training curriculum would look like. But the scope is that we get someone in doing some support to the Michigan Municipal League and Michigan Municipal Executive Pipeline for city administrators, which is apparently lacking, and supporting our local school while also getting someone to go through some training and possibly do some educationally learning practice of some products. So we're also working, the attorney and I are investigating like how that actually shows as payroll or not payroll under a fellowship, whether it shows as a temporary employee or if it shows as some other type of employee. So we're still trying to investigate some of that. But I think with this and some of the other documents I've sent you in your email, it's something that I'd like you to kind of talk about because it's not budgeted, but it is, I think it's well invested funds that we could find somewhere to support local universities, support our MME, and support the town with a fellowship program that would enhance and possibly continually perpetuate over time.
So the next step is to define what those educational goals would be for specific work or tasks that they would do with the city?
Yes, Your Honor. So I would have a requirement to identify what the training and learning objectives would be along with NMU for their program, and assuming that NMU student would get placed in Ishpeming. It could be any student gets placed in Ishpeming if we got selected as a host city. The commitment by the council would be $6,000. The commitment by my office is to identify those training and learning objectives, build them into a packet, and also submit that application where it shows that TLO's training learning objectives. The TLOs would be documented clearly within the packet and forwarded as a host city application. Then if selected as a host city, then we would be committing the $6,000 at that point.
Gotcha. Okay, so we don't commit to 6,000 unless someone comes.
Correct. You would have to be selected as the winning city, right, or a winning city for which a graduate student would be placed in a fellowship assignment at the host city, for which then we would contribute $6,000 to the $12,000.
Gotcha. And what's the length of time for the fellowship program?
I think it's just short of 12 months. The application for the students, I believe, is end of May, June. So we're looking to host city application before that so that they all pair together and then it goes through the next year.
Who selects the cities? The students or the
The MME.
MME? Okay.
MME. And I think part of that process of my working with the MME and NMU and pairing them together and getting this kind of program, it kind of all is tying together that the board says, hey, Ishpeming brought in a whole new university that's never participated before, and they want to support a local community in their town in the UP. And then they make a decision, who? Like, could Nagani sweep them out from under us? Possibly. Could somebody else? Absolutely. But the board would probably add favor points of some sort. I mean, we haven't been through the process but one application period, so I'm not quite sure exactly, but I think we would stand a good chance.
Okay. So you're not looking for any specific action from us right now, just that?
No, just consider it, ask me any questions you want to get answered now, look at the packets, and then as I build the application with the TLOs, or provide the TLOs and stuff over time, we need to kind of like, yeah, we're committed or we're not committed to this program. And then a budget decision would have to happen as well.
Okay. So if anybody had any real concerns about potentially down the road contributing $6,000, now would be a good time to be like, there's no way I would be behind that idea.
This would be a great point to start that conversation, yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, personally, I think it sounds like a pretty good, sounds like a win-win, win-win-win. Northern wins, we win, and a student wins. Ideally, if we're selected.
And MME,
And MME, yes.
4 wins.
Do you have any idea what the, like, so if it's a 12-week, or I'm sorry, short of a 12-month fellowship, what kind of like day-to-day time would be committed to Ishpeming?
I don't have that feel. That's another thing that I think as I build the TLOs, we'll be able to identify, and also understanding what the school is thinking they're committing. But it is a program that's a work study. So they expect to be doing some work and turning around some product for the $12,000. So it's not a short amount, but I mean, it's probably not a full week, right? It's probably a couple hours a day, or, a couple days a week, depending on how it meshes in with their graduate program. With some products tied to it, whether, maybe they participate in a rate study, or maybe they do some other stuff that would be building a product for the city and then doing a presentation on that product and things. So there's a lot of different ideas that I have stirring around that I have to stir around with NMU. The first was to really get NMU on board. Without them, we're kind of at the mercy of a student wanting to be in the UP and then having a packet. By having us building TLOs that match their curriculum, I think it's building a stronger packet.
Okay. Well, I think it sounds like a great idea. I guess if anyone has any seriously conflicting opinions, as I said, now would probably be a good time to voice that.
Oh, I think it's a great idea.
Okay. All right, so if that doesn't require any specific action from us and nobody has said they hate the idea, then we can probably move on, huh?
Yeah, I guess just direction, you do want me to pursue. I mean, if there was really animosity towards the program, I'd assume that was probably not a good direction, but it sounds like the direction is to keep moving forward and work towards that endeavor, so.
Yep, sounds like everyone's pretty positive about that.
For sure, yeah.
Okay. All right, moving on then to number 6 is the purchase of a copier for the police department.
So I have Steve on in case you have questions, but the short answer is Steve's major copier for his office and the police department died. He was able to work out a loaner in the interim. I was ready to just say, we need it, can't live in the police department without one, and then recognize that the total was a little bit over my authorized limit. So we've been working with the loaner. We were already perceiving that we needed a new copier in the police department. So we were doing some comparisons already between companies. So we use one company downstairs in City Hall, and Steve's been using UP Office already in the past. And so we compared the prices between those. There was really what's bottom line is he's getting an upgraded printer that can do more things than what he could before for less money per month in maintenance. And then the cost to purchase was better than the cost to try to lease something at this point. And this was the better of the options because the other company was, I think, $1,500 to $1,700 over this one. So it was a pretty significant difference between them. So the recommendation is to allow us to purchase this printer for the police department.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to go ahead with purchasing the printer for the police department as presented.
Support. I don't find any place on here where Mr. Santee put anything about a warranty. what kind of coverage have you got on that, Steve?
Part of the maintenance agreement that goes along with this is that they pretty much fix anything that goes wrong. You know, the last one's 8 to 10 years old, and when anything went wrong with it, they have fixed it. And that's part of the maintenance agreement that goes along with it. So specifically a warranty like a 1 year, 2 year, whatever, I don't have that, but I can tell you that that's what the maintenance agreement's for, is that we pay, I think it's in the 170 range quarterly. And currently we pay about 230 quarterly for a maintenance agreement. And so the maintenance agreement is going down. The printer can print more copies, and if something goes wrong, it's covered under that maintenance agreement.
Sounds good, thank you.
Yeah, I think we calculated that the savings per year right now on the annual maintenance is about $212 a year over the life of the, you know, of the, how that.
When this comes in to the police department, do we have somebody responsible to take that in and put an asset tag on it? And that should be no different than a computer.
The answer would be the 906 technology would be coming in and putting the asset tag on it under the technology side.
That's all I have.
They don't really do a lot with our printers because it's a warranty purchase, but they would asset tag it under IT.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of purchasing the printer copier for the police department, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Steve, you're getting a new printer copier.
Roger will be happy.
All right. It's probably not your most fun piece of new equipment, but very functional.
Gotta have it.
Yep. Okay, moving on to number 7 is the 2022.
Your Honor, I have another 6 in here.
Boy.
Oh,
Oh, that's because I added the copier before the capital investment. So the 6 you have in your packet is actually 7.
Oh, okay,
I didn't wanna
so the
put the-
MDOT one?
Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't want to put the copier after. I just thought so I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
am I missing an item? How many?
So, no, so there's an email that has MDOT information on it that goes with 7, but it was
Oh.
previously labeled 6, so you might see a scratch out or not.
Gotcha.
You missing it? Keep this.
I think I'm missing
But
something.
it is part of the discussion for
That's
7.
That's okay. All right. Yeah. Here, Pat, you can have that back. All right. So we are on number 7 then.
We are on documents labeled number 7 in your packet. Yeah.
Okay, so number 2022 capital investment strategy.
Yeah, so administratively, thank you for letting us sneak some stuff in, items 1 through 6. This meeting was intended to be the capital investment strategy meeting. And so the rest of the time will be spent on your learning, understanding, and discussion surrounding capital investment strategy. So what you have in your packet comparatively is the one that has the fancy script City of Ishpeming on it. This packet was done in 2019, 2020. Prior to my arrival, that was on our website as our capital investment strategy. Then in your packet, you have one that has the new city logo on it. And that was the 2020 packet that I did last year. It was, by the time I realized it was due through the RRC process and all things COVID getting in the way of normal timelines, the MEDC folks and QPAD folks helped me to put together a product to make sure that we didn't miss our mark related to RRC compliance. But it was my throwing it together, all things me, and very little, but it was approved through the Planning Commission, and it was a recommended approval from the Planning Commission and approved by the City Council. But the work was not the council's strategy. So that said, what we would like to do is take the 2020 version, just scan it, see if there's anything that was there that you thought might have gotten extracted and you wanted back into the conversation. Otherwise, starting with the 2021 version, or the one with the city logo on it, is RRC compliant document. And we need to talk about the strategy. So as we talked at our last workshop, when we talked about budget guidance, that was about the annual use of funds. This is about your 3 to 5 and as far as 10-year plan for how you want to structure budget, structure programs such that we look into the future as to what our investments should be for the city. And so we talked generally about a few things, but I think I would like to focus your attention first towards the end of this document. I generated some goals, which kind of shape and frame how you would think about investment as a council. And then it allows people to understand then what, based on those goals, you thought were worth hitting the list. And then the list that was generated was sort of taking all of the things that we thought were above our budget lines and putting them into a table and kind of making sure we didn't miss anything significantly and trying to figure out where they might fall into priority and where they might fall into costs. All of that stuff is to say that those numbers are really rough and generalized. Again, it was more about meeting a timeline than it was about strategy. So I don't think that the real strategy, I think the real strategy is in the goals. If you think the goals are sufficient and on target with how the council wants to think about capital investment, then that is a good shaping tool. And then we can capture a list of things that you would like to capture for investment within those goals.
So should we go through these goals then one by one?
That's a strategy. I think that it might be a wise thing to do as part of this discussion. Or I can take you and say, do this as a homework assignment and come back with, yeah, this is our goals with another work session. But it's up to you. I want to give it to you guys to think about how you want to strategize or look at these things. But then sort of how we did the last workshop where we were kind of capturing things on the board, we do need to try to get after a couple of things that we think are important. And I think one of the things that we kind of captured on the last budget meeting was that like the fire tower is one of those items that should hit here. It can be on your annual, but it should also be here as one of those things you're looking at investing in and fixing in the future. So there could be a list of items that come out of this besides goals. However you guys would like to approach it.
So I guess then the question is, do we want to go through each of these or do we want to take it home and think about it and write down some ideas and come back and revisit?
What does the rest of the evening
The rest of the evening is more dialogue and discussion, similar to the planning guidance. Like, let's talk through what a capital investment would look like, what kind of things are out there, and then capture what kind of things you want to have on the list. So dialogue about your goals is just as relevant as it is capturing the list. The time limit is really where we're at, right? As we put some stuff on the front end of the meeting and we gave ourselves 2 hours to do some work. And I don't want to, belabor time when there's some things you might want to think about. That's okay as well. I don't think we're ready to do this. I think I don't think we're ready to finish the document. We still have to push this through the planning commission. This is one of their roles, is to participate and help to plan. But they should at least understand your goals for them, and they should be trying to help you with the master plan to say, this might be more critical here. You give them a list of things and they might have a list of things and they might shuffle them, rotate them and say, here's what we recommend the council consider the capital investment for the next 3 to 5 years. So this is a 2-committee function.
you hit on the reason I was asking what do we have tonight, I personally, with what you've said, I think we should present this to the commission at the same time and get all the input from council and the planning commission. And then go through it, instead of us doing a bunch and then them looking at it and maybe making other changes or questions. Would it make any sense for both groups to do it as homework and then put the final product together, whether it's a joint meeting or?
Yeah, I mean, we can try to do something like that. So the past practice is that the commission really, I don't know that they were ever given an opportunity to get involved. I don't know that the root of this previous year's document, my understanding is that it didn't really bring much of the planning commission's ideas or discussion. Last year, when I pushed this with them, they felt like, hey, they never give us any goals to even try to give a list. It is a shared document. In the end, what really happens is they recommend a SIP to the council approves. But I think really those, without understanding the goals, they can't really formulate a list either. So we have until about the end of June to have this product done. I think originally on our target, it was the end of May, but it's not a problem to push another month. So I mean, we've got a little time to kind of shell it out and work it out. But I'd rather make sure you understand what a SIP is and what it isn't, and discuss that. And if you're willing to have more meetings, then we do those things, right? This is more about a learning and discussion, dialogue, understanding of what kind of direction you want to give than it is really a work, knocking out goals. But I think talking about some goals, maybe even if you did one or two as a group, so that you can give thought and dialogue to the next, there's what, 7 or 8 here on the page. If you talked as a group about how you feel about one or two, maybe that shapes what your homework assignment and your return might look like as well. So I mean, it's new, and I want to make sure that we have opportunity to kind of formulate how we want to do this. And if we don't like this year, we try it again next year.
Yeah, I'm just kind of reading through them.
So like,
I have an issue with the goals that are on there.
Yeah.
So like the first goal on there is sort of about bringing the whole budget program together, right? This is one wicket of that entire program that we've already talked about, right? So we talked first about the guidance, and now we're talking about the SIP, and then we're going to talk about the next step. So that goal is sort of driving the whole process of learning and understanding and the way we're going to move. And it may be a good goal, it may not be formulated correctly, or you might say, hey, you know what, this is solely about SIP. Let's just talk about the goal for SIP and not the goal for the entire budget cycle. I mean, those are ways to look at the goal. But this is a document about SIP. One of the comments I did get from the folks from MEDC is they're not used to seeing these goals, and they thought this was along the line of best practice. So they like the idea of goals, which is why I like to think about keeping those and working on making them ours, not Craig's hashing something together.
In a general look at the capital improvement, the budget, and correct me if I'm wrong, we look at the budget and we have our budgeted items, our list for next year that we're working on currently. And we list those all, and then if I remember or understand right, we're going to have all the other potential improvements below that. And when opportunity or something happens, we drop one and we move our bar down, or move one item up, correctly? Is that,
That is absolutely part of our strategy, is that you generate a list of requirements that is greater than your budget. So that if opportunity presents itself, you take advantage of that opportunity and your cut line can adjust up or down based on how things work out. If you have an unforeseen something and you spend money on it, well, your cut line now goes up. If you come in to a windfall, like we might this year with some COVID relief money, your budget line might go down and you might be able to get more done. And so absolutely, that bar does move, and it moves fluidly regardless of how your year goes. Things change and you don't forecast everything. Steve was forecasting a new printer, but he didn't forecast that it was gonna die before he got his analysis done. So he finished up his analysis and made it happen. We adjusted, right? So that's how that bar goes up and down all year long. And we work through it. But yeah, you're absolutely on target that this is one of those things. You build the 3 to 5 year plan, and sometimes you think it's gonna be done in year 3 and you get it done in year 2. Sometimes you think it's gonna be done in 3 and you get it done in 10.
and that being said, I think it's more to my liking that we move forward with the SIP and general discussion and completely do the goals, other than an explanation if you think, like to pick one, I guess, or two. But I think the meat of the whole thing is gonna be in the plan itself. And I agree that the goals are a good idea, but I think the part we're lacking, at least myself, is the SIP itself.
Always start with the 2022 year.
So that first line will change 2022. Where it says 2021, it'll change to 2022. Where it says 2022 or beyond, it changes as, like, if you check something off, then it changes. If something dropped off because your goals changed or your strategy changed or something, hey, that's no longer important to us, or it got funded, it can come off the list. You could go down this list and say, well, let's start and see if this thing came off or came on or my ideas weren't even valid at the time I put this together. Like, hey, no, this shouldn't be on here. You could go down the list and start hacking away. You could push it out, you could take it off, however you want to do that. And I don't know, how's the lighting for everybody? I'm having a little trouble with the lighting. I might add a little bit so that I can read it. Is everybody okay, since we're not using the screen for what we're trying to see?
So what if we go down the list and we say yes or no, and
The goal list or
the SIP itself? Because I think it would be good to pull the planning commission in. And so it might not be too late to put this on the agenda for Monday, huh? I'm not sure.
what's Monday?
Oh, it's not next Monday. The following week, there's
A
time.
lot of people got scared.
No, there is,
Wow, I
there
really
is
thought next week
time,
was the
there
first
is
week of
time
April.
to have
Yeah.
it hit the planning commission for their next meetings, absolutely.
Yeah, just kidding, I did that on purpose. So we could ask the planning commission to have a look at this as well. We could go through and kind of look at like yes, no on some of these things with like kind of a dotted line maybe through things, and then maybe that dotted line could go, like maybe could you update this document so it has a strike through? So that it's still on there, and the planning commission could look and go like, whoa, I can't believe you guys took this off of there, or something like that. And then they could look at it and agree or disagree, visit the goals. Meanwhile, we could take this back and think about the goals, but we'd have started thinking about it without going, because if we're going to get planning commission input on it, I wouldn't want to go too far down the road and have them just say yes or no to changes that we've already made. Would want them to actually have input into it. So does that
I'm
sound?
sure you can put color to field in or strike
Yeah.
through or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
So-
definitely like to hear what they have to say, but I do have a couple questions about some of the stuff on here.
Okay, so let's just start at the top then. We got 20, well, this would be 2022 then, right? That would be the first.
Well, so, right, this is a 2022 and beyond plan.
Okay,
And so some of these things were kind of hoped for in 2021. So the first one, the trying to establish a Volksfest, that did not happen. COVID got in the way, and having group gatherings and things just kind of got pushed. And there wasn't really much beyond an introduction into what it was even possible to be.
Yeah.
To get a champion of that from the council that wanted to say, yeah, I want to lead this and see if we can't make it happen. So the question is it still something you want to think about? With COVID, it's kind of still lingering. Maybe you push it a year, or you say, you know what, it's just not something we're looking into right now. But that is about, generally it is a common thing in Germany that is about a outdoor activity for families to use trails and walk and finish at a sort of a public gathering with music and or food and drinks.
Yeah, so Diz, I think you're the only one who wasn't here when we talked about it. It was, as he said, a walking festival. So a longer distance walking festival, is that?
5, 10, 20, and 40K, you can do
Okay.
any of those kind of generic distances.
Okay,
And it involved awards. So if you come out with 3 friends or your family, you can say, we're gonna do the 5K, 15K, whatever you want, and it's a charge, it's a break even. So it might be a engraved mug with the, the event on it or things like that.
yeah. So I got a thumbs down over there from Stu, and and I'm thinking with COVID still being an issue, that it's probably reasonable to just push that one off. We don't have anyone super invested into it or anything at the moment, so great idea.
We have nothing invested into it. Is it a push or is it a drop?
I think it's a push.
Okay.
And now, do we want to note, push it out a year?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just to try and keep.
So
Yeah.
I'm noting push or drop on
Yeah.
mine.
Yep.
And then, so when I say push, then the question is how far? 1 year, 2 year, 3 year?
I'd like to see it 1 year,
Yeah,
because
let's
I
put-
think it would be a great, maybe a slow starter, but I think it would be a great draw.
Yeah, it's different than anybody else is doing. So, and if we push it a year and then we decide to push it another year, that's fine. It just stays on the list as something that we could think about.
Would it be something we could have the local group do, like the Rotary or the
You can, if you do it correctly, what you do is you end up creating a new committee or new program, because you would develop an actual program group that is chartered with the international club.
anything for us.
It wouldn't cost you anything.
We have $1,000 down here.
Well, so the actual event might cost to set up and then recoup. And that was, again, now these are wild guesses, wags. And so, yeah, you're right. You could say, you know what, I'm only on board if it's a 0. Or,
And in my mind, that's what it is.
Well,
Yeah,
it could be up
yeah.
to, it could be up to a $450 if you waived your own fee for using the park,
Right.
like if you said it at alcohol,
And
so.
that's the
I mean-
thing we have to remember, on a lot of these items, we're not agreeing to any cost.
You're not, no, you're, this,
We're not, like it says DDA. Well, absolutely, the DDA should be involved. And Stu's got a good idea. Hey, if you bring Rotary or somebody, we don't want nothing to do with it.
Right.
We want the people to come to town.
yeah, and that is a funding source. You think that is something that this council would say, hey, you know what, DDA, we think this is something you should invest in one way or another, even if it's just time and effort to make this happen, and expend what you need to expend because it brings people to town and causes them to spend money in our businesses.
And it truly, we're doing a thing with all our committees now and commissions where we're trying to make that tie that we haven't had in the past.
That's one of the goals.
Right. And truly this, when we put it into the budget, it should be leaving us. It should only come back to say, we want Qual for this weekend for this. We shouldn't have to be planning it. That should go to the DDA and let them get a funding source and.
Yep.
And so the next line, I'm gonna line out and call funded. So the DDA has already budgeted and committed this year 15K in 2021 and 10 for the next 10 years subsequent for developing our Christmas lighting program and making us a holiday lighting destination.
Cool.
City Hall improvements, IT. So you can see here, this was a wag of $20,000 and we put over 60 into here, but we got it in 2020, not in 2021. So is this still a desired thing? I think so. I think you should be looking at other available opportunities. There's things still like putting sound deadening panels in here. There may be some additional laptops for some of the guys as we build out PubWorks, and we may go to a mobile app. Then, you know, that could be another resource. Maybe a couple more tough books so that the PW guys can keep up with projects. So I'm not sure that you want to wipe it out. It may have just kind of morphed itself. Like this could be a $20,000 a year thing that says, hey, maybe we ought to be thinking if we're going to put $20,000 a year, maybe we should be putting it in our budget rather than our SIP. Like I would have said, this room should have been a SIP, but we didn't have it as a SIP. We just got an opportunity with COVID relief funds to make this happen. So again, this thing is fluid and changes and dynamic, so is your budget. So just because we did something doesn't mean wipe it out.
Yeah, because this room has entered the 21st century, but there are other places around the city that could use equal upgrades.
I think
So the library, absolutely.
I think the next
library
two should
absolutely
stay.
needs fiber to the library. I mean, that would be a great
I think
upgrade.
they should stay, not be bumped, maybe not that much money, but I think we should keep it as it is.
Okay.
Okay. So fiber to the library was, sorry, I jumped a line. Fiber to the library was on there for about 10K. I think that's a little bit low. It might be closer to 20. Again, these are WAGs. The number doesn't matter so much as the idea and the commitment of it. I'm not sure, I mean, it's not in the 2021 budget. We didn't talk about it during our 2022 budget. Is this something you want to think about in your 2022
That's what
budget
I
guidance?
think, yeah, let's let Jesse have a comment on this.
Yeah, so we do have fiber at the library. It's not connected to the same network that the city is on, but we do already have fiber internet in the building, if that changes.
Right, so, yeah, so I guess to clarify, we have some things like our phone numbers. She has different phone numbers because they're not part of our switch, because they're not on our same LAN connection. Camera systems are having to be done wirelessly if we do cameras, which could be put on a LAN if the same LAN that is backed up all the way down to the police station. It gives them some fiber connectivity to a server that they don't have right now. They do have a fiber. It's just an improvement to how we do it and running some of those things that we don't have.
And that's why I said those two, City Hall improvements and City Hall improvements fiber connection to the library should be combined. And personally, I'd put the priority on the library. So if we have to take part of the money we're setting aside for City Hall and move it to the library, but they're interrelated because connectivity to the library doesn't exist.
So the library is not on the same network.
They're
So
not
like
on the
if-
same network.
So if
They're
you
paying
had DPW at the library and they wanted to log into PubWorks, they wouldn't.
only if they had a Wi-Fi connection within the library on their tablet or their tough book. They can't plug into their network and do it. They would
The
have to have
important one to
Wi-Fi.
me is administration first.
Yeah.
Jesse could print to Kathy's printer and such. The telephone system, obviously, you just mentioned that, there's several things and her files could be backed up to the city or wherever it is now.
To the server.
Or if all the
mainframe
other
at the
printers
server.
go out, she could print to the new printer at the police department.
Yeah,
Gives her,
yeah.
yep, gives her a lot of, it just gives some stability and security across the,
Yeah.
across
So
the platform.
maybe not combine them, but certainly keep them both tied.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
again, this is what was projected for 2021. As you do budget guidance, is this something you want us to consider for 2021? Or do you want to consider it for 2022? Because
Both are in 2021? City Hall
So
IT
at
and,
the top of your table
right,
shows the projected year. So we're working on the 2022
Gotcha.
budget. We did not program this into 2021.
but we did not.
No, this is what we thought would be on the list if we had a cut list shift as our capital investment, but it did not get funded in 2021. So now we're planning for 2022. That tab will change to 2022 and beyond. And so if you say, hey, you know what, we're planning guidance for 2022, I want Jessie to look at this as something for her budget and propose that within the budget for 2022, we could do that. Or you could say, you know what, let's push it to 2023.
Well, I think at this point, if it isn't already in the budget, unless we feel like it's super, super important. I mean, if we push everything that isn't already in the budget to 2022 and our cut line for 2021 essentially winds up at the bottom, right? Then you could, and you're like, what do we do with this extra money? Then you would go to 2022 and start looking at that. Or are we prioritizing within 2021 in the event that that line moves?
Yeah, so we can always go back to this document, because this is codified on our website, that if we ended up with extra money, we can say, you know what, we're gonna go hit this off of the 2021 plan.
Okay.
But as we're talking about guidance for 2022 right now, we're talking about the 2022 and beyond SIP. We're talking about the planning guidance for 2022. The question is, do you want us, this is an item that's lower in cost that you could say, you know what, I really think that this upgrade went really well. Let's target this upgrade for 2022. Or you can say, you know what, let's forecast it in 2023.
Can I make a comment real quick on that 20,000 for the IT? If you remember, right before Craig got here, is that we did a major replacement with computers throughout the city. Spent $45,000. I think what we did from there was to not get in that same position again and look at what we needed to replace throughout the city each year, so we didn't have to spend 40, 50,000. So I think that's a lot of where that 20,000 came from. Was there were some people that didn't get computers and we just upgraded them and pushed them off. So that was one of the things that we were looking at, was trying to get on a system of probably like a 3-year turnaround, that everybody's computer in the city would be replaced or upgraded, and not wait till they all failed. So that was part of where that 20,000 came from. It was a guesstimate, because we were able to do 40 to 45,000. We couldn't do that all the time. We identified 30 or 35 computers. I don't remember exactly what. We brought 906 in. We did all that. So that's part of those IT, not only upgrades, but just as far as the maintenance with everybody's computer at DPW, at our place, police department, city hall, library, kind of were taking care of their own through the co-op. If I'm correct, Jesse. But so that, I just wanted to put that in there, is that was kind of what the thought was, I think, when we were looking at that 20,000.
Yeah, so to dovetail off that real quickly, you could say, I agree with that. That's what we strategized. Put it in the planning guidance for 2022, build it into your budget. And then I make sure that the budget for 2022 has that much money earmarked for IT. We can tag what that IT is, what that upgrade is, whether it's new computers, whether it's fiber, whether it's something else. But that's part of where these two lines blur together, right? You can pick an actual topic and say, I want that, Or you can say, no, we're gonna push this because it should be in our budget, but we didn't. Last year, we did not put that specific IT $20,000 in, but we did some upgrades. We didn't plan this one. It got $60,000 in IT upgrades that didn't hit our budget. But if you say, yep, I want that in 2022, it goes onto my budget guidance tabulator versus my capital investment tabulator. But they blur, absolutely. This is where we start going back and
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah. Well, I think it's pretty reasonable then to put that in 2022.
Yeah, I agree. And we should have a better handle on the future. Like Steve said, I spent a lot of time with him when we did that. And 906 should be able to give us a forecast. What does 2022 look like? We're looking at upgrading the library to fiber optic and getting the phones, you know, there's gonna be expenditure there. But I would say we keep them both in, and as you do your budget, you look at what an actual cost is gonna be.
So to that point, I just took a note that they will come in and do a forecast of IT resources briefing to you somewhere in the future.
Sounds
Perfect.
good.
Yeah, this is what we're trying to do. This is what you've been asking me. When that kind of conversation comes out, I'm taking notes to make them a speaker or presenter at a meeting. So,
Okay.
all right, so consolidated Fox lease scanner. So that's another one of those kind of things I've been working with IT. So Steve's purchase, should we be trying to do everything through the, I keep forgetting, the UP office as a consolidated, hey, it's all one source, it's all one service contract. Right now, it's multiple service contracts. And at what point do you transition? So like the one down we have in my office is not UP office, and there's not a good one sitting down in the main office, and they might be the next opportunity to put another one under UP office so that we all get to a point where you get a better service contract and lower pricing on your deal. But then you're kind of committing, you're almost sole sourcing at that point because you did a budget analysis for one and you assume that it's gonna be holding true for all. And then because we're buying the equipment, not leasing all the equipment, it's not a true lease contract, it's a purchase with service. But that's what consolidating all this stuff is under this item, like trying to figure out, strategy. And is that a strategy you want? Do you want to try to consolidate to one? Do you want to just keep finding the best deal each time and whether it includes a new service contract or not?
Well, there's two questions that I would have is one, first, is buying it the most economical? Or is leasing it a better plan? And secondly, you wouldn't want to do that every year. So you'd probably want to go to a 3 or a 5 year plan and go out for quotes, go for bids and say, we've got this, and service for all of those. What do you do for us?
Agreed. The problem is we have to figure out a transition. We don't have a transition strategy. We own all of them. We're buying one for Steve, not leasing one for Steve, and it's different than the one that's owned downstairs. And there's still life cycle left on the one downstairs.
But we have one more that's going.
And we have one more that's gonna need to be done for the office downstairs. So do we start with determining lease versus purchase and say, hey, what does a lease cost if you turned all of this over? What do we get in return?
Well, I think
That's a
we
strategy.
gotta set a calendar first. If we're gonna do it for 2022, then by the end of this year, we have to catalog everything, which we should have through 906, and then go out and say we want whatever qualifications as a purchase, and then go out as a lease, and both of those with service agreements for all of this equipment. And let the salesman tell us, well, if you're buying or leasing a car, they're gonna tell you the best plan, allegedly. So I'm sure that, and maybe even 906 would weigh in on that.
Understood. So I'm gonna call that a push. I'm gonna call that a push to 2022 two, well,
Same with a lease. Most companies will lease because you got your service agreement. Toner's very expensive. You put them all in a package, and they would be on for 5 years. Shouldn't have any purchases at all.
I kind of agree. I mean, we spent a lot on Kathy's computer and printer, and that was another one we got caught. We knew it was going, and one day it crapped. If it crapped and it was leased, in 2 days you'll have a new one. But in that case, we had to get a loaner and
so I put it as a push for the conversation this evening, and I pushed it over to my notes for the 2022 budget guidance, so that I'm formulating an answer under our strategy for budget.
Yeah,
Because if we're looking at least, it's gonna be an annual thing, and if not, then it's gonna go back to capital improvement under a push.
and if the other one dies tomorrow, we're not gonna have a plan in place to fix, we'll just,
Well, then, my question then is, do we still go out and make a purchase for Steve, or do we try to, wait a couple weeks to get something in place and then?
oh, I would say move forward. That's an important one they gotta have. But I kind of agree with Stewie, except on the 5-year thing, I'd like to see us do a 3 because it's a new deal, hey? Instead of committing for 5. And I don't think 1 or 2 years is enough to make it worth our while.
Okay, I have guidance to move on, and I pushed it on this, I put it over here. And that's, I mean, this is what's good about this document, this dialogue and the conversation. I can move it and adjust it and get it straightened out so that we can give something back to the planning commission to talk about too.
okay. So then we're on to the next one, City Hall improvement, front service, counter protective.
Yeah, so that was an Army guy trying to think of what we should be doing to protect our workforce. And, I'll just use the word riots as of late, right? Suggest that our workforce may not be protected. Do they need bulletproof protection at the window? Probably not. Could I do something that has a speak-through microphone that people can hear on the other side instead of a 6-inch window, a pass-through drawer? Yes, you could do things like that. That was kind of where this concept was how do we protect the workforce a little bit differently?
Yeah, unless all of the roads are okay.
I don't disagree that this may not be a priority, Stu. I was just describing what it was in title for the conversation. You might say push because it's not, until I get all the roads in this town done, this isn't a priority. But that's for discussion and dialogue, absolutely. I agree. But the purpose of that was protect the workforce.
Okay, so
And it was pre-COVID.
go ahead.
My question, just to jump down, skip the next one, but the DPW clerk improvement. The DPW clerk is downstairs in City Hall now, right?
That's correct.
So we wouldn't need 2 items.
Correct.
We only need the 1.
Correct.
Because they are using the same window.
Correct. That's one of those changes that occurred. Yep.
So we can
absolutely.
basically cross off that second one then,
Yep.
and then could we say push on the first one? And then the question is, how far do we want to push it? Because I do think,
Which after I'm dead. To 2050.
You're starting to come out a lot clearer. Here, I want to weigh in on this because when David Savu was our attorney, last time I was on council, he got all up in arms over this. And the country was a lot more stable in those days. So we added the one to the financial side of the office across from the finance office, the front office. We added a door there. Or a lock, I'm sorry, a lock there, a combination lock. It's broke. It's a joke. we added one to the outside door that keeps people out of Kathy's face and your face, and the attorney if she's in, and our other financial. And that doesn't get used, people don't like to use it. So until we can manage the 2 doors, or Stu dies, I guess I'd push it out. I agree with you,
Yeah.
but
All right,
Yeah.
again, I agree, the priority is not.
Didn't we have a request or a proposal to put in some kind of crazy glass thing there?
we got a quote at one time, I think.
That was before Craig was here. Do you remember that, Kathy?
So I'm good with a push, 5 years, 10 years, off the list altogether.
I would say just push it 5 years.
Everybody?
Stu's not gonna live that long.
Wow.
I don't know if we want to push it 5 years. I mean, I think it's a fairly, well, we're not gonna do it until we've paved every road in the city. Well, okay, well, what does that say about, respecting the safety of the people who are working here?
I'm not basing my discussion on that. What I'm saying is they can't manage 2 doors. And I'm not gonna spend 15 grand on a bulletproof window or a safety window and have the door next to it propped open.
Well, I think it would be reasonable to say, let's push it out a year. We can always push it again next year. But I think if push it to maybe to 23. I know you don't like it.
Well, and also, I mean, if the doors aren't being utilized, can't somebody tell them that they need to utilize the doors?
And in
Why
this,
are we letting them stay open?
yeah, and this entire thing right here, with this, why doesn't this also include making sure that the doors are in their proper setting? Or if we need to replace a door or a handle, that's in this too.
So it doesn't necessarily say it has to be the window.
Yeah,
My-
I think
the
there
reason
are
is-
some legitimate
Right,
safety
the reason
concerns
the reason
to think
this ended
about.
up on the deal was the front-facing customer contact is that front one sheet of glass. What you're talking about with the doors are already through 2 levels of security. The outer door to the building and the outer door at the lobby are 2 security methods that you now have another layer to get through that other door. But I only have to go over a counter. I only have to go over a counter and through a piece of glass on the
Not
other
during the day when
window.
you're open.
But I still have to get through the outer door, the outer shell. At the lobby or at the outside wall.
When you come up the stairs into the lobby,
Yep.
that door's open from 10 till 5, right, or 4:30?
No, it's mostly locked. Once in a while when like Al's coming down for a copier or if there's a meeting going on
How do
upstairs.
people get in to pay the water bill?
The stairwell, yes, the next stairs, when you come through the lobby, that door's locked.
Never.
Oh, yeah,
It's propped open all the time.
okay, well,
Well, regardless.
we'll work, yes, but
And maybe, do we want it, we could even reword it, maybe make it a blanket security at City Hall.
I think
Yeah.
that's very reasonable.
push 1 year, change to
Whole
City Hall
safety
How
plan.
many times have we been attacked?
How many times have people been standing in front of that girl's desk screaming and hollering? That's my real concern.
Yeah, there are,
Why you put the doors in, right?
Right, that's why we put them in, but if we gotta buy new locks because they don't work
Every time
properly,
I-
so be it.
I agree.
They're closed.
Safety, we may not have been attacked, but that doesn't mean we can't be, or that
there
we
aren't
don't
threats
have
or
another
that there
Okay.
pandemic.
So I've got the notes,
1 year
I've got
push.
the notes for that as a 1 year push and I changed it to security rather than just focusing on the window.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Are we on website compliance or?
Yes, we
Okay,
are.
so website compliance is, our website is better, but, there are some state rules and national rules for how you manage website and ADA compliance and security protocols, so there's no backdoor penetrations and things. We don't meet all of those. I had one estimate, towards the beginning of the year last year, and it was about $8,000 a build, and then it had a sustainability package of annual upgrades. So, you're looking at about 8 to 10 investment and then an annual service plan on a website. To
That's
upgrade it.
906 or some.
Well, 906 could be a competitor. I don't know that they are not strong in that, but I don't believe they're as strong as others.
No, they're not really a website.
That's not one of their fortes. They're
Yeah.
coming around. They just started doing some websites for some places, but I think they're really at the basic level and are trying to help small businesses that don't have anything versus a municipal government has files and share files and things on it. But honestly, I think we're gonna be forced at some point to be compliant website, and we're not.
Yeah, I would think I'll push to 2022, with that probably being closer to the, above the cut line.
Okay. Empire repaving, I would say scratch that, it's being worked. One note on that is that the packet being worked right now is, there'll be a decision for the council to make. But we think it's a complete shutdown of Empire where local residents can access, but it's not a written detour, just a road closure for the period of construction. But that'll be a discussion coming, so just, think about how you feel about that over the next couple days to weeks as a decision comes. Replace salt or sander truck, that is something that's actually being looked at this year. We talked about that, possibly replacing a body. I would say that we just keep that where it's at in 2021.
Okay, and then the trail groomer, is that for out at Elkwall?
That would have been for Alqual. I don't think that it's on for this year. So I would wonder if you guys would want to push that. I think it's something we're gonna need, but it's been updated and it is working right now, so.
Okay, yeah, let's push that. And then the sidewalk plow, we can cross that one off.
That's been funded. And look at that, 100,000 and we paid 90,000, so pretty good wag for once. It was actually under on a new one though. Snow blower loader attachment. Don't even recall, I'd have to ask Timmy what that one is. I don't recall what that one was that was carried over. I think it's still needed. I don't know that it's wagged correctly or not, but.
So that's probably a push then.
It's to replace that big one that goes on the loader, and I think that's.
Oh, is that the loader one? Yeah, so I think that we actually, then my guess is that we would push, and what Derek is thinking about is maybe getting one that's a little bit smaller as we replace this one, as long as it can still throw into the bed of a truck. But the one that we have is so large and fits in very few places, it's harder to get some of the places, so I'm tracking that one. So I say push maybe 1 year to 2 years. You guys like 1 or 2?
Let's do a push for 2.
2, okay.
And then I would think the Nature Trail, City Park, Excelsior, I would think push that probably at least 2. We've got kind of a lot of, we have other projects that are in the works that are moving that will probably take some time to complete. So I would think 2 to 3 years on that. Okay, because the campground.
Campground is funded.
We can cross that off. And then the city skate park design, that's also funded, isn't it?
That is funded, and they have approved the design company.
Okay.
Pending contract review.
And then dry storage in the basement.
Here?
I believe that was a police department dry
department?
storage. Steve, was that a police department basement dry storage? Do you remember?
Yeah, we had talked about that, yes.
That's why there's no price in there, because I don't think we can afford it.
Probably not.
When you got fish swimming.
We got a large area down there, but I can't store anything because of the dampness and because sometimes there's a river running through it.
So I mean, obviously, I think it's important to come up with a plan. I'm not like, it may not be in the police department, it may be something other, future plan and capital investment, but I think it's important to push for now. Because we don't even have a strategy for how we would do it, so.
Yeah.
But I think it's important, and I'm gonna add the word police or IPD on the back of it, so we know where that is.
We should probably put police fire.
Okay.
Just and what were we gonna push, 2 years? Year?
It's probably gonna take a year to figure out a solution, so probably push 2.
2.
And
All right, and then portable radios, that's the police department also.
yeah, I don't know, that was you, Steve, as well, upgrade or replacement of portable life cycle.
Right, we're three short right now. So that's, we've replaced, I think 8 of them. And we have 3 more to replace. And they are about 3,500 apiece.
3,500 apiece, so 14's not that far from, it's a little bit over actually, but is that something you want to look at budgeting for 2022 where there's only 3 to replace?
Yeah.
Look at it as a police budget.
Leaving it in
operational budget
2022
plus-
work for you, Steve?
Yeah, it would.
Well,
I mean,
it's
I haven't
not in your
planned on
2021
doing
budget.
it this year, so I've already, we just got 2 new ones from the last COVID money that came. So,
But you've got an adequate amount, it's not something we
Yes.
gotta move out.
yes.
Okay.
Again, you've already budgeted your 2021 budget. So the first opportunity to say budget in our budget cycle versus capital improvement cycle would be
Unless
2022.
it was an emergency.
Right, an emergency would be
As long
different,
as
yes, sir.
And the tower repair, that's the fire tower?
That's correct.
Now, are we
That's-
able to push that?
That is the repayment. That was, what's there is, do we want to, and we haven't done the analysis, I haven't gotten all the USDA, so the what's on paper, not what's been discussed, but what's on paper is, do we want to pay off the approximate $55,000 of USDA loan and just move on to trying to find something else to get that fixed and find a strategy? We owe approximately, at the time this analysis was done, $55,000. And do you want to pay it off? I get the feeling that we want to figure out if there's a way to not, I'm not opposed to that strategy. I'm just saying there's no other analysis beyond that in this. It was paid off, move on, so we could get it done. Or, the strategy might be roll it over and add to it, I don't know.
So let's push it.
So where does that stand right now? Like, the city attorney is looking into that?
No, it's me trying to find the right person in USDA to talk to and find out where they're at on whether or not there's any chance of holding anybody accountable beyond what we've been doing. I have the previous attorney's analysis in a red book
We're pushing the
downstairs.
repayment of it.
Oh, push the repayment.
Yeah, because
The
there's 2 lines, there's repayment and repair.
Yeah,
And I
push
think
that
we should push the
repayment,
repayment,
For sure.
but,
Nothing,
We have to repair
agreed.
Right.
yeah. But, I mean, technically, we have to push the repair because it's not budgeted for in this year, and there's a possibility that it might coincide with the repayment,
Correct.
maybe.
I mean,
Possibility we may have to repair that this year though, too. I don't necessarily think it's a good idea letting something that wrap was meant to be for 1 year, not 2 years, not now going on to 3 years. I think we need to take a look and see where we're at.
No, I don't disagree.
It's only
Yeah,
been
what
one
when
winter,
we-
hasn't it?
Yeah, so we can say push 1 year means to 2023. Or we can say, but look at it for budget for 2022.
I think we should look at it for 2022.
Yeah, I think we
Okay,
should.
so that goes off of SIP and onto the 2022 budget. That's what
We
we're,
have bricks on
Yeah.
there.
so,
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
and-
but the repayment
and if
is
it-
out 1 year, 2023, or depending on what comes out of this
And I think there
analysis.
needs to be an asterisk on this one too, that if we can't push it to 2022, then we need to tackle it now. Because like Diz just said, we cannot have bricks falling. We cannot have somebody over there getting hit on the head, getting our, any of our equipment damaged or any other.
No one's making any argument to that.
So-
I agree 100%.
Okay.
It's kind of like the copier, like if the copier downstairs dies tomorrow, well, we'll have to figure out what to do with it. If it becomes obvious that something has to be done about that fire tower, like tomorrow, we'll do something about it. But if we can have our own timeline, let's figure out how to do it next year.
So we're pushing them both, the payment and the,
So the payment, I'm calling it push 2023, because we're gonna do the analysis. The tower repair, I pushed from SIP to budget for 2022. So one of your budget items that will show up on your 2022 budget as fix the tower.
Yeah.
With some
Yeah.
estimates. I'll go
Yeah.
start doing RFPs and find out what it's gonna cost us, and meanwhile, figure out the other strategy of what we gotta do about the payment.
There needs to probably be a much larger conversation with the whole fire police department, because I'm seeing in here new apparatus floor. I'm seeing new fire station. I'm seeing several different things on this list that probably should be talked about. Because if we're going to look at replacing that building or moving either the police out of the building or the fire department out of the building to make room or however you want to do it, we need to have a plan versus just spending $200,000 to fix the apparatus floor when a year later we're contemplating building a new fire department, fire hall or something.
What's the apparatus for?
So without,
Where they park
that's
the trucks.
that's where the trucks sit when they pull through the bay doors.
Okay.
You're absolutely correct. So if you're talking about replacing the building or building a new building, that is, there's gonna be a design and then there's gonna be a funding. This was something that was carried over.
Right.
That's why I gave you the other document.
I
Like, this
know.
is what I started with. And in some cases I carried stuff over, in some cases I added. I still believe, right, in my heart of hearts, that it might be smart for us to build a pole barn-like structure. I'm using loose terms, right? A pole barn-like structure that is insulated, warm storage for fire trucks and equipment where they are strategically located. There was already a place possibly even designated for a new fire station, and they pull their fire trucks out of that. Police vehicles could go into this bay and it wouldn't have to do any kind of repair. And the police could move into the administrative portion upstairs, share maybe a training environment necessary, but then get their dry storage. So there's strategy that could all be applied, which is that larger discussion of how do you tackle this? But for the sake of having a capital investment strategy, we think we need something. What do we need? Do we need a new floor? Do we need a new building? Do we need a new what?
Well, that's the thing, we've got it on here, and I guess I was trying to kind of see what we need to kind of take a look at, and if that means have some more, some conversations with us as a council, as with the community, with the fire department and the police department, maybe we need to do that, so that way we are planning this out properly.
And
So Stu is providing some comment to the conversation. He was just trying to make sure I understood the notes. So he was talking that maybe one of the strategies could be to discuss with the National Guard Armory commander some possible move of some of their stuff over to the NMU facility if there was space available, and then using some portion of the National Guard Armory. But I don't know feasibility or anything in that, but there's, you know, that's a strategy that could be discussed and talked about as part of a plan.
Who told you that? The president of the they would move Ishpeming agreement down to the Jacobetti Center. And they would abandon this building out there.
So that is a strategy, and I don't discount it. I think it's probably wise because there's some other stuff about, they're talking about other movement and other stuff with the National Guard. But that is much larger than just the city of Ishpeming and the SIP. But it doesn't mean that we can't look at it as a strategy. But yeah, right, that's something to talk about. So anyway, I think floor replacement might be something to push. We gotta maybe rename it. Maybe it's develop a
Fire hall
a
plan.
fire plan or fire hall, yes. I mean, we can rename it. What would you like to rename it? Is that what you want, fire hall plan?
Let's call it fire hall plan. And push it to 2023.
Okay.
Do we want to push it that far out?
That's probably not even gonna be far enough.
So I don't argue one way or another. I think maybe a design is feasible in 23 with a construction in 24, depending on grant opportunities or funding availability. Again, I don't know. Who knows what's going on with COVID and what those requirements might be. I don't think that the latest round of the Rescue America plan, I think if I read that right, it's Rescue something, right? I think it's American Rescue or something. But I don't think that would fall into the usage scope that's gonna be given to us for those funds. But that would be a windfall that you might have said, hey, my line just moved and this is how much it's gonna cost. And you could go through the process of design and execution in a period of time between now and 2024. And you would have been able to do it, but.
The apparatus floor should be relatively solid, because we did a bunch of upgrades and before the ladder truck was purchased. So it would, Jason?
Yeah,
How critical is the floor?
we're talking about, well, it's partially that, but that terrazzo and all the lead stripping is starting to pull up. Plus, the water's starting to go through the cracks in the floor, and you can start to see the salt on the bottom of the ceiling in the basement. So it's not looking good.
Gotcha. So I think, that being said, it's more critical than I thought, but I think we're still okay with this. I mean, there's so many things that it could be used as a museum. As you said, it could be police. There's a lot of things that I don't think we should do anything rash. Hopefully some relief on the tower, so we don't have to tear it down and cap it off. So I don't think if we do a year or two push, I don't think it's gonna be critical, but if there's cracks and water's running through, it's obviously getting worse.
Okay, so I have it down for a push, and we might break it out to a design and a construction, which would be two different pushes, but same concept.
I think that's a good, I think that's a
Yes.
good way to
We
break it
shouldn't
down.
stop analysis in that at all.
Yeah, if we have a plan and we plan to do a plan, then that gives us a starting point to move forward. That could either be expedited or pushed further depending on how the situation.
Obviously.
Yeah.
That maybe sooner rather than later.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Cause I mean, cracks and floor and water's going into the basement sounds kind of critical.
it's only gonna get worse.
I think a lot of that is the old construction terrazzo was put in squares, hey? So there's seams in there where it's probably more prone to leak than you would think. It's not the crack you think in construction as much as it's voids in the floor.
Floor, yeah.
But yeah, we should be analyzing it right along.
Okay. So, one of the hopes was that, the library would be able to use some of their improvement fund and build a new space and Jesse, I don't know if you want to come on and maybe talk about whether or not the library board's looking at that, now, or are you looking for something to be supported by the council? How are you hoping to do that library, children's room?
The plan was to use the Ray Leverton funds that were raised by Ray Leverton. They were raised for the purpose of large projects such as renovation in the library. There was, when we originally renovated most of the lower level, originally there were plans to include the children's room, but we didn't have enough funding at the time to move forward, so they were scrapped. So we're looking at something not what was originally planned, but something similar to make the space more usable.
So are you hoping to do something in 2022 or 2021 still?
It wouldn't be 2021. No, the board hasn't discussed it recently.
So I'm gonna call it a push to 2022, and we'll reevaluate in 2022 because they're using, other than city council budget meetings, so it's really a board decision on some of those Ray Leverton funds and how they want to approach that. And again, I think her approach was similar to what we've been doing, is design 1 year, construct, depending on what the design end up costing versus the construction, they might have the funds or not, so.
Okay.
Man, I can't read this.
Rotary Club,
Oh, that's the Teal Lake kayak.
Yeah,
So
that's
that is, I'm gonna call it a push to 22. And the reason is that we're applying for a grant that would be funded in 22. I'm not calling it a budget item though, because it is a grant application, and it's subject to that. It's not subject to budget, so. Okay, so now we're looking out another year to this was 2022, so now we're starting in 2023 and looking at whether 2023 or 2024 or 2020, or beyond.
So we're renaming this then.
The whole, this is gonna be the next step, so we're doing
Okay.
years out, and all we're doing is every year starts the next year from what it's labeled, and you can choose to keep it or push it.
So should we like wait a little bit here? So we push some stuff already over that.
No, I'm gonna clean up the document with what you're recommending, and we're gonna push it to the planning commission and say, here's what they're kind of recommending, what do you wanna do? But this, but
Yeah,
the
but I think what
program
she's
is-
saying is we've already pushed some things that would be in this column now. We've moved things that theoretically would show
Yeah,
up here.
you're essentially doing the same drill though.
Okay.
And so things that come over from this one
nothing we
to the
moved
next
here
one
is
could-
Yeah,
prioritized
that's
over
true.
anything
Okay,
that's in
okay,
here.
Yeah.
okay.
I guess, I just.
Gotcha. Well, like here's new fire station.
That's why I was looking ahead
Yeah.
at this, because
Well, and again, that was design versus design
Yeah.
plus next
Yeah.
construction year,
Okay.
right? So, and so you're not missing it, it's just which year did it fall into and making sure it's correct.
right, I was reading
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, okay.
So the first one is City Hall windows, like this one, if you stand in front of it long enough during a windy day, you'll feel the wind blowing through it. There's several that are like that, but it's not a small upgrade to improve windows, but it is a significant efficiency gain. And you're, if depending on which window company you choose to do it, you're looking probably at a 25-year investment,
That
so.
might be something you could find grant stuff for in a year like this.
Yeah. I'm kind of inclined to think push it another year. But, I mean, if we were able to find a grant for it, that'd be great, but, I mean, it's an energy improvement, but at the same time, it's also not. A lot of these other things we've looked at are pretty critical.
So this might be a stupid question, but is this something that we're gonna reassess every year? for the next?
You do a capital investment strategy every year for the next, to revisit your 3, 5, 10-year plan, yes. And again, this one had no analysis last year at all. It was Craig taking what was there and some other ideas and generating a list in a way that was more compliant with RRC. So this analysis did not happen last year. So you're actually doing last year's, this year's, and next year's analysis kind of all in
And it's
one.
really something, even though we had a plan, was never done.
On the next.
Well, no, I mean, we can move to another workshop, but I mean, the point is, we haven't even started the conversation before, not while I was in the seat. So there was limited conversation before, but again, I can't describe the process before me, so.
And part of me is thinking as we go, you know, even if we went through the 2023 year here, I would like to then see more of a clean thing to come back to before we continue pushing on and pushing on. If we have to come back for a second meeting or a joint meeting with the planning commission, that might be a much better thing so we can see, I guess, on a clean sheet what we've pushed.
Okay.
Fine, yeah.
You know, get through this 23 fiscal year and then say, okay, let's get a clean sheet, see where we come up, and come back with the planning commission or as a council again.
Understood, so I think that, if I hear you correctly, give them an opportunity to look at that once for the first time, and then set a meeting following the next planning commission, where it's a joint council, planning commission, and in some fashion, whether, you know, all the planning commission or, you know, a separate committee of representatives, and continue to hash this, and then maybe in the end, it's a prioritization as well.
Yeah.
I think that sounds reasonable.
Okay,
No,
so I've got the
I
push.
don't, I don't understand why we're doing that. We're gonna move the blocks. Why don't we finish this pass and then get the clean sheet and get together with, why would we split it in half? And I'm usually really big on clean it up, make it simple, short, but why would we stop and then come back and start over again? What's the advantage of doing that?
Part of the advantage is to give the planning commission, instead of just like, here, we did this, what do you think? It gives them some more buy-in to the process, which I think is really important if the goal is to have the other boards and commissions not, you know, to sort of push some of that responsibility and work back to them rather than us doing everything, then we should
Well,
stop doing.
I'm not disagreeing with
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I'm saying, why don't we do the whole thing
Because then,
and bring it to them?
because,
We can do it in parts also.
yeah,
Yeah, I think this
Not giving them the
is,
whole thing to do it at once.
this is our first, at least for a lot of us, our first SIP type thing
Well,
for
I
the
think
city.
For all of us.
Okay, for all of us, okay, yeah, so I think it's gonna be that way for the planning commission too, and I think to do this right, Craig, I know has put a lot of focus into getting this community to look 3, 5, and 10 years down the road. He's done that better than anybody else. I've you know, worked with a few different managers here on projects, but I think we need to make sure that we give this project the attention it deserves, and actually, I think giving the planning commission the opportunity to look and come up to a certain point also and say, okay, we've got half of this done, let's meet, iron that out, and then we'll start on the next half.
See, and that's the part I don't understand. Why are we stopping?
because we want to give the, yeah, because I think,
Well, I don't have a problem with overwhelming somebody.
but so,
We're overwhelmed all the time.
yeah, but so if we overwhelm them, they're not going to take it all that seriously. They're going to say, yeah, well, whatever.
They've already done it.
And they've already done it.
Yeah,
So what we've done here is we've already gone through 2021. We've made a really good example of what we were doing here. So if Craig marks this up with push, cross out, et cetera, then when we look at this at the planning commission, only one chunk is done.
Yep.
So we could ask the planning commission to take a swing at maybe 2023 and 2024, and then they could bring it back to us. And then we've given them some ownership in the process, and they've had to look at this and say like, oh my gosh, I don't know what this means, or we need more information or something, but it gives them an opportunity to have.
Prime example, look at what you've, all the work you've put in with the DDA and how much we've started to move on the DDA now. I think if we continue to give these other boards and commissions a chance to.
You have to understand, it's not about taking anything away from them.
No,
It's
I know.
the baby spoon. Do it, give it to them,
This is
and
the,
tell them come back to us.
this is the baby spoon. If we do the whole thing, I don't know what the baby spoon
Butterfly,
analogy is, but.
And so I have my personal feelings, which sort of mirror yours, Mr. Scanlon. I have what I got for feedback, which was pretty hostile feedback from the Planning Commission last year, which said they never let us participate in the process of planning the future of this town. Why even bring this document to us? So from the mayor's perspective, this gives them a new buy-in that they never had before. And you might find a new participation that you've never had before by doing it the way that the mayor is suggesting. And I'm willing to try. I'm willing to get past, I'm just, yeah.
All I heard is one more meeting.
Well, right, there's more meetings, right? And that is part of the work effort, but we've gone from the city manager just throwing something on paper to sitting down and talking about something in a way we've never talked about before, and now trying to also bring our commission into the fold and give them some ownership and responsibility. And then meeting together and say, hey, look, how did you feel about that process? How did I feel about this process? And did we get what we wanted, or do we got to do something different?
I completely agree with every word you said except split in half. That's the part I don't get.
Well, I never said split in half.
So,
But we are
Yes,
at the
there
end.
you are.
We are at the end of a planned meeting, and the meeting was planned for a certain length and time, and we are at the end of that, which I think was one of the drivers that wasn't discussed. Was, hey, if we could push through this portion of the table, at least we got a little bit more work done before going home. And now that we've done the first table, the dialogue doesn't need to be as much. We can start saying, hey, push, push, push. If you need to know what it is, I'll describe it. Otherwise, you all can start making pushes without discussion and dialogue, and you can get through this second table and still finish a block of time which was slated. I think that was the purpose of that.
10 minutes, we got 10 minutes, let's.
So to your point, Pat, about, not doing all of it right now, in order to bring other people in, right? Like I could sit here and just write push whatever, blah, 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 and give it to Craig, and you guys could all say, yep, good. And that would use the least amount of time. The more people that you want involved in the process, the more time it's gonna take. I mean, that's just, and I think it's important to bring the planning commission in.
I do too.
And the planning commission has a whole bunch of new members. It's turned over quite a
Just be
bit.
completely clear, it's nothing about blocking out the planning commission. It's completing
I
one
know it
task and not saying, this is what we approved. This is the work we've done so far, would you guys please go over it? And they can go over the whole thing.
Right, but
And we
it's,
can get together and go over the whole thing, if that's what you wanna do.
I'd rather have them do part of it and then we could do part of it. So we could go back and say, okay, here's our homework is to look at this and what do
We
you
could
think?
swap 'em.
Push, and then we can take the planning commission's recommendations on push or do it or whatever year it goes to, and then we can compare. We could have a representative from the planning commission come in to speak on behalf of it. It just takes more time if we're going to incorporate their thoughts.
We're
And
doing, I think we're gonna be doing it in a better way, maybe not, I don't know if there's a right or a wrong way here, but we are going to be giving the planning commission a lot of ownership in this, which is what should be happening now that we're.
Again,
Right.
not taking anything
No, I
away
know-
from
I
the
know.
planning commission.
I know you're not.
Make it clear.
I know you're not.
So I guess I don't think we're gonna get through the second table in the next 10 minutes. So I do have another piece of paper in front of you that we didn't talk about, which is information about the MDOT there's two MDOT grants that are available. This is how they work, and this is about B. There's also an F. They come with so category B is kind of laid out in the front. Category F had its own little worksheet that didn't have. But this is where we asked GEI to come back and do another presentation on rate studies and what they're gonna recommend for their $305,000 of roadway work, but also possibility of pairing some of our infrastructure money with roadway money and how they might tie to these two grants. This too fits under SIP. So when something like this pops up in an email and you've not given it any consideration, even though this document is done, it doesn't mean you can't go back and say, hey, you know what? Let's update and throw this into the mix. And there may be things that we didn't put on here that you say, hey, we got to think about. So as an example, just yesterday, and I think Steve finished that email today, a resident was worried about an intersection over by the archery store over across the highway. And the way the intersection is laid out and how traffic pulls, off of the main drag and sort of hits that side street at a higher rate of speed and people walking from a blind corner. Maybe there's a project to look at that intersection and maybe redesign an intersection in town. And so there's things that may not be on this that even the planning commission may bring too. They may say, hey, did you think about this? We've been thinking about upgrading 3rd Street, and this is how we kind of projected it, and it's not on the list. So you're not bound to just this list, folks. I want to make sure that's clear as well, is that if you have something else, we need to think about adding those and where it falls into the capital investment strategy. And again, it may be on the list today and it might drop off and never be thought of or talked about again.
And one thing that I also want to, that we're going through a lot of these, I did reach out to Senator McBroom the other day. Provided that his schedule allows, he's going to come on for part of our next regularly scheduled council meeting and just talk to us about, COVID and where we could expect to be and where the state should be. So if you have any questions on stuff like this,
Already done.
Ed is a really good sense of knowledge in what kind of programs can be out there for small communities.
Don't bring his checkbook.
Well, hey, so we had Sarah, last year. So, I wanted to give Ed a call and see if he wanted. He said, I would love to come and speak to you guys.
So are you asking or telling us?
I'm asking a little bit of both. Is that it? Provided it's okay with his schedule? Is that good with the council to have our state senator speak to us at
No.
public comment?
No.
What's the agenda look like?
Well, if he comes at public comment, then he'd be bound to the time
Right.
restraints. If he's on the agenda, then.
He's already public.
So
We are nonpartisan elected officials and Ed is a friend.
Should know better.
I'm digging
I
it.
think a big improvement is,
Hey,
I'm digging it.
I'm doing what is supposed
What's
to
he
be
gonna
done.
talk about?
He'll just give us a little bit of a COVID update in a sense from the Senate and a lot of where we're probably not gonna end up losing money. Might have
I
some.
think that'd be reasonable to
The
have.
last thing I want to see on a 3-hour meeting is Ed McBroom waiting to talk. I'm sorry.
He'll be up at the top of the hour though.
No.
And give him a time limit. You got 15 minutes.
I think that would be great.
Give us a 15-minute update.
And I don't even think he would take that.
So I may, it takes 2 members of the council to recommend something be put on the agenda. And so if you have, right now, we have 1 council member asking for something. I think he's at this point asking if there's another council member that's willing to support putting that on the agenda.
I'll
Hey,
support putting that
I
on the
know.
agenda.
I think that's what the
Yeah.
comment
Yes.
is.
and
Yes.
I think
And
it's
we're
fair.
spending time on it.
We did hear from Sarah.
I'll support
Thank
putting
you.
him on the agenda. Just tell him to give us a
I
15-minute
will.
update.
15 minutes or less, got it.
I just feel like we've had Sarah.
Yeah,
It's-
no, I
it's
think
the
that's
right
fair.
thing to do is have Ed.
Okay, so.
And I'm a friend of Ed's.
Rounding out the SIP document comment, I will find out what our actual final timeline is gonna look like. I think it's June 30th this year. I have to look at my Trello card and some other stuff, but, we can ask for an extension if it's necessary. But I think it's important that we deliberately move through this process. And deliberately meaning however long it takes. But I don't want to cheat anybody. I don't want it to be me throwing something there, and I want everybody to be comfortable with what we've done. So that said, I think I've got my guidance necessary to go forward for.
We'll
the
ensure
planning
that this goes
commission
on the planning
to
commission.
establish another meeting, yes.
Okay.
And
Do
that
we
was the last.
have anything
agenda item.
else?
That's the
Think
last.
that's it?
agenda item.
Okay.
I will send Jody with Ed's office
And just before we end, I think, I purchased this book. It came today, 13 Ways to Kill Your Community. I intend to speed read this weekend. And there might be some council homework that comes along
Well, what I'm gonna do then is I'm gonna buy it.
if it hits the expectations that I think it's going to. So
I'm gonna,
I'm hoping, I have high hopes that it has recommendations for how to address some of the larger issues in our community.
well, when you read off the bullet points or the 13 things on there, I would say that this community's done a good job of doing that. A lot of it in the past, maybe not intended, but this council, this manager, this entire team, at least from my perspective, has one hell of a positive outlook on where we can go, so.
So, and I'll just, in the 1 minute that's left before 8 o'clock, say that this came about because when I was downstate, there was an article in the local paper about a municipality that had hired the author to come in and consult for them. They're paying him a lot of money, so a $15 book is a lot cheaper. We can get enough from the book. So that's my spiel, and it's almost 8 o'clock. So,
Motion to adjourn.
all right.